Good evening, and you're welcome to an open discussion on the issues raised by the Anambra state elections. Now, initially, we were supposed to discuss the improving the competence of the Nigerian civil service, but we had to change the topic due to circumstances beyond our control. I would be discussing that with Oge. Oge Bunamsi is a journalist from the Premium Times newspaper. Oge, are you there?
Yes,
Okay, now I'm just going to say my experience and then hopefully I would get questions because I was in Oka and I was at the field during the elections. One thing I know for a fact is I left my house around 8 to 9, and the polling unit I passed to get to my own polling unit did not have INEC agents by past 9, and I waited at my polling unit till 10. One thing that we did not lack at the polling unit was security agents and party agents. We saw a lot of them, and they were timely. And they were very, very present. But we lacked INEC agents around 10 when I finally left to go to the situation room and make my media report. But okay, were you at Oka during these elections?
I wasn't an Oka, I was at the election.
Okay, but you were following it. Can you hear me?
I can hear you clear on that one.
Okay, you were following the elections. Hello? Okay. Okay, while we are still waiting for Oge to join today's discussion, one of the things that we're going to be discussing today is the primaries that actually elected the flag bearers. Okay, can you hear me now?
I can hear you now, yes.
Okay, I said the first thing we're going to be discussing today is the primaries that elected the candidates. And we're just going to be focusing on the three major candidates and not the YPP candidates because he was already the flag bearer from the onset. Now, let's talk about ABGA primaries. In your opinion, was there actually a primary election in ABGA?
Well, I wasn't there at the primaries. So from what I heard from or what I read on the newspapers, I would say maybe they had primaries, most likely, because before they select a particular candidate, usually there are other aspirants who 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 have intention who come out with intentions of becoming governors. And then after the primaries, then we'll have a particular candidate for each party. Now I remember that after the primaries we had, there were little conflicting issues that led to court. Court was either at some point they said Soludo was the candidate. At other points, they removed his name and they had conflicting. So currently, if they did not have elections period to selecting a particular person that would represent the party, they won't have options of having other people that will replace him if whenever they remove his name from the list of candidates for that purpose. I could see maybe they will summarize, they will have other people that will replace him.
Okay, I'm trying to hear okay, but I think your voice is very low. Remember that this is an open discussion, and what we're talking about today is the Anambra State primaries. I was in Oka throughout the elections. I was here even before the elections. So I think I have some knowledge about the topic. And if you want to join this discussion, or if you want to ask questions, kindly raise your digital hands. And I'll try to accommodate as much comments and questions as possible. Now, talking about the primaries, I'm just going to give a rundown of what happened in most of the political parties. Let's start with the current ruling party, the ABGA. Yes, it said that there was an election, the election that brought about the governor-elect, Professor Charles Soludo. Now, build up to these elections, we had a lot of aspirants, and after a screening process, most of the strong aspirants were rooted out and screened out, giving the governor-elect a serious 90% chance of victory at the primaries. Now, some may call this a strategy, used by the current governor, Obiano, to put a candidate he is familiar with and he was really interested in to become the flag bearer of the ruling party after. Others will say that maybe the people that wanted to contest as governor were already members of the House of Representatives and already holding good positions, so they should just rest and let someone else run for governor. Whatever the case, that is what happened. And we saw that a lot of people were dissatisfied with that election, that primary election that brought Professor Charles Soludo. And this led to a lot of court cases, him against Umoji, Honorable Umoji, which took considerable resources to resolve. And that is for ABGA primaries. Coming to PDP primaries, we saw court cases that threatened the election of the election, that's the primary election. But PDP decided to use the super delegates to prevent anybody from faulting their electoral process, and thankfully that worked for them, and that was what led to Mr. Valentine Ozigbo emerging as the flag bearer of that party. APC, it is still contested and debated whether APC actually had a primary election or if Senator Andy Uba just hijacked the party and became the flag bearer. So this is it for the three candidates. If anybody wants to if anybody wants to debate my opinions, please kindly raise up a digital hand and I'll try to accommodate. Questions? I can see Mr. Anambra hand is up. Mr. Anambra.
Yes, I will, in as much as I'll be happy to speak about the primaries that threw up these candidates. It's important that Nigerians know that political parties are not concerned about following the law. I am aware that one chief, Efani Chukwu, is in court challenging the manner in which these four major political parties threw up their candidates. In fact, I just learned this evening that INEC indeed wrote a letter to ABGA saying that the party did not formally invite them to supervise the elections. So he is in court for the court to decide whether INEC should be allowed to resile on this issue where a political party failed to invite INEC to supervise an election, because that is the rule. So where a political party fails to do that, is there a consequence? That is one. Because we are aware that when INEC first released the names of candidates and political parties for the Anambra election, most of these guys' names were not there. Valentine Ozigbo's name was not there. Chukwuma Soludo's name was not there. I don't even know whether Andy Uba's name was there. But eventually, we see these candidates somehow, INEC approved them, and they all, contested the election. I'm also aware that the person who took the fourth position in this election, Senator Efani Oba, is in court. He was challenging the candidacy of these other three candidates. That is important for Nigeria to think about. The manner of the emergence of these political parties, of these political, these candidates, these governorship candidates. Yes, Anambra people are happy that somehow, Soludo has emerged as the governor-elect. But the fact remains, how did Soludo emerge as the ABGA candidate? Is it lawful? Should INEC simply, allow that to go ahead? So it's a very, very important thing for Nigerians to consider. But I'm more interested. Another thing, I'm more interested in the interim takeaways from this Anambra election. And I'm very, very enlightened by the article which we published from Professor Chido Odenkalu, We published it on 8th November 2021. It's very, very, very enlightening. I have read some other takeaways also from the one we published today from Law Mefo. I've also read what Chima and Ebukonye wrote on the topic. You know, there are so many takeaways, and I'm happy that Prof is here. I don't know whether he will oblige us to, but let me mention some of the things Prof said, which I found very, very interesting. And I used what Prof said yesterday in Ginger Media TV when he invited me to speak on this matter. The IPOP challenge is not intractable. Let us first discuss, because this affects the existence of the Igbo race. How was it possible for IPOB, that was saying no referendum, no election, and that in fact said no election will take place, that people should sit at home, then a few days to the election called off their sit-at-home order and which allowed a lot of people, thousands of Anambrarians, to go out and vote. And then, how is it also that even though IPOB have said that they are not in any relationship with the Biafra National Guard, who we know are the people actually carrying out this violence, especially in the Ehala area, it is the Biafra National Guard and not IPOB, and not ESN. But why is it that when IPOB said we are no longer going to disrupt this election, that Biafra National Guard actually also quietened down on that date and did nothing? What is the secret? And then when the election was eventually handled yesterday in Ehala, suddenly violence broke out again. Is it possible to interrogate this issue to find out exactly what is happening between IPOB, Biafra National Guard, and in fact, the role played by Igbo leaders to get IPOB to retract their sit-at-home order? That is something that should be also investigated and analyzed. Perhaps that holds out the solution to the IPOB challenge. Yes, Prof also talks about the candidates matter and how they emerge even more. Someone was asking if Soludo is the candidate of APC, whether he can still win this election. Well, that is debatable. That is a matter of conjecture. That is hypothetical. But my position is that it's very, very difficult to defeat a credible candidate produced by APGA in Anambra State at this point in time, because the Anambra State government has transformed the entire Anambra State's political structure into an APGA voting machine. You have the civil servants who receive their bank alert every 25th of the month. So in any election cycle, these civil servants who are sure of their salary 25th of the month, and pensioners also are voting activists for the party. Then you have the community president generals who are giving contracts on what 20 million naira to spend on any project of their choice for their community. So in every election cycle, these president generals constitute themselves into an APGA voting machine. Then you have the Anambra billionaires. Nigeria practice patriocracy and not democracy, where the patron in a particular community dictates the political leanings and inclinations of the people in this area. So APGA has managed to co-opt the Anambra billionaires into APGA stakeholders, so that in every election cycle, they go into a partnership, they deliver their communities to APGA. So it's difficult to dislodge a party that has been in power for 15 years without serious fight. So let me stop here. I would not like to dominate the conversation. There are so many credible people in this forum. Dominic, thank you very much for joining. Felix, Mazioke, we would like to welcome opinions.
Well, when we get their hands up, we can take opinions in an orderly manner. Right now, I can see that no hand is up. I don't know if I should start calling people to come join the conversation. But you raised some interesting topic and some interesting points. I don't presume to speak on behalf of the Biafra National Guard or the IPOB, so I'll leave someone more knowledgeable to talk about that. But talking about the place of ABGA, when the ABGA party have used this mental orientation now that the average Anambra man will support ABGA above any other party, like you rightly said, talking about the pensions, the salaries, and other forms of another forms of performance. But the truth of the matter is, Willie Obiano has not really performed well. He has not. His performance is nothing to write home about. I'm currently in Oka, and I can tell you for a fact that if we have 1,000 roads, 900 or 950 are not functioning. But because it's Karabun Pani, it's our party, and so the average person will vote for ABGA. And talking about the elections itself, I can tell you this for a fact that this elections was won with money. There was a lot of money spent on this election. I don't know if it's government funds. I don't know who was funding Soludo, but I can tell you that ABGA outbought APC. There was a lot of money. And when I mean a lot of money, I mean usually votes are being bought with 500 naira, with 1,000. We're spending like 4K, 3K in most places to buy votes. I'll tell you this for a fact. So votes were induced. What I cannot say is if the people have genuine love for ABGA or if it was because of the money. I can't say which it is, but I know that yes, people voted for ABGA. The reason behind that is what I can't even say. But let's listen to Oge. Oge.
Can you hear me clearly now?
Yes. Can hear
Okay,
you
so
clearly.
about the other time, it's quite unfortunate. I didn't use the earpiece properly before speaking. First of all, what I want to say is everything I say here, it's my personal opinion. So we don't misinterpret whatever I'm going to say. As regards the election, like you said, people really are really voting for the party, not the person. That's what I think. Because I think, first of all, they believe, the Anambra citizens believe that APGA is probably from Ojuku, and then they want to maintain it. If you look around properly, you see that Anambra State is the only state that still has APGA in it as governors, as the ruling party in the states. Apparently, they vote the party, not the person, just to sustain the party's name. Because we believe they believe it's an Igbo party, an Igbo originated party, and so it should stay. It has not been dominated by foreigners, our Nigerian brothers from other ethnic groups, brothers and sisters from other ethnic groups. So aside from vote buying, I think people voted after because they probably wanted to maintain the party, people who voted sincerely. And then I don't know if APGA did more vote buying than other parties. I can't say that. I'm not sure because I did not vote, and even if I did, nobody gave me money. And the ones I saw, I couldn't really pinpoint the party. I couldn't establish which parties were giving money. But the truth of the matter is, all parties give money. You may be surprised that it's even the least expected party that even gave the most money, but come on, people voted whom they wanted to vote. The truth is, people want to maintain APGA because it is an Anambra party or an Igbo party. They want APGA to stay at the state level and maybe some other parties like PDP at national level. That's what I think. That is my personal opinion.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, remember that we are discussing the just concluded Anambra elections. If you want to join this conversation, simply raise your digital hand I will try to take as much comment as possible. Now, moving on from vote buying, and like I said, I was there. I was in the field, and I saw it for a fact that Anambra spent the most money in most places. Moving on, let us talk about the conduct of the election and the use of the beavers. That's the biomedial.
Sorry, I'm sorry. I'm sorry to interrupt at this point, but let me ask this question. In almost every other election in Nigeria, we always see video evidence of vote buying. But has anybody seen any video evidence of vote buying in this Anambra 6 November election? I personally haven't. And
Well,
if not, why?
Well, the last time I worked as an electoral observer, I know for a fact that my phone was seized and I had to call my superior to actually so before I could get my phones back. I think that was in 2019 elections. I didn't actually video this time around because, like I said, my polling unit where I went to, there was no police, there was no INEC agent there before I left the radio. So the reports I'm giving now are from field agents that went and was calling in during the situation room reports that we were running on the radio. So no, I didn't personally video anything. I don't know if I can get any video. I cannot assure you of that. But I know that our media agents were in various places. They covered almost at least they covered a lot of places. I don't really know the number, but they covered a lot of places, and there was reports of vote buying, and these political parties are not even hiding it. They're not even hiding that they bought votes. The polling political party agents that were on ground, they're not even hiding it. Like I said, when I got to my polling unit, I could see security agents and party agents, and these people were literally offering me 3K. And that was at Garba Square inside University, Nnamdi Azikiwe University. They're offering 3K. And they were telling me that you better come and collect this one. Or if not, other parties are offering you 1,000 and 2,000. And I just laughed and I told them, see, I'm a journalist, I can just video you. And they were like, no, don't come again. That's what happened. And I left because INEC agents were not there. So I know, like I'm saying, I'm not trying to spread rumors. I'm saying what I'm very sure of. But of course, I did not get any video personally. Mr. Anambra, your hand is still up.
Okay, can I say something now?
Please go ahead.
Well, I think for the part of videos, it's becoming, let's say, difficult because these guys now watch what people are doing, right? So, but there were pictures, clear pictures that this happened. So I think picture evidence, it's good enough to tell you that it really happened. You might not really get a video, but when you have a picture of this thing happening, showing you that these persons are exchanging money, come on, you should believe that it happened. So even if videos are not there, there are pictures to show this.
Okay, I can see that Mr. Lumba's hand is still up. Okay, Mazi Okoye. Mazi Okoye, kindly unmute yourself.
Yeah, thank you, Augusta. I just want to sort of make a contribution with regards to the election. From the outset, we had quite a few interaction with the earlier sort of candidates that were competing for this, to be the party's flag bearers and what might have you. However, in the last few weeks towards the election, it seems like the candidates that eventually ended up competing against each other, like Soludo and Ubas and Ozibos, are smuggled in through the back door of the parties. So how they emerged as flag bearers is still very, very, it's still a mystery to me. However, the election itself is kind of a mixed bag because although some of us are quite relieved that the exercise, sort of, came and passed without major incidents like a lot of bloodshed and what might have you. We're quite relieved on that front that there's not much violence at the day, that the conduct was, decent. So we're happy about that. However, I think there is, this idea about politics in Nigeria that, everything's still done at closed doors. Most of the things they do there, especially at the party level, even on the national level, they do it closed doors. Things has to change hands, money has to change hands. It's just still very, very mysterious how they do politics there. And that's what Nigerians themselves have to, consider when, they abstaining, or some of us have to abstain from politics because of this kind of mysterious, way they do politics in Nigeria, because politics is not meant to be a mystery. Parties supposed to present their, candidate well in advance through a process like a voting, like a primaries, like, or, party primaries, or, national primaries, or things like that. But they don't do it like that. They do it by delegates, some do it by smuggle, and, it's just a bit wishy-washy. So I think it's something that, political parties themselves have to look into, because it's not, in the long run, it's not going to favor them. It's not going to help them as a political party, the way they do things in a mysterious way. It's not helping them.
On this issue of how candidates emerge, what do you have to say with this bill that's now passed by the National Assembly to make it mandatory for political parties to elect their candidates through the direct primary system?
I think it's a welcome development. If because laws in Nigeria, it's not that we don't have laws. It's just that people don't, respect the law. They don't respect the law when the laws that are there. So let's hope that, okay, this bill that got passed, that political parties will adhere to it, not having to, go around it. Because one thing with our people is that they're very, very good in finding ways to go around things, be it any kind of law. They're very, very good at doing that. So let's hope that they keep it straight and respect the bill and respect the law.
Okay, if I might interject here, talking about the direct primaries, I want to remind us that APC was the only political party in Anambra State that allegedly conducted direct primaries to that used direct primaries to
They did
elect
not.
their flag bearer.
No. APC was I think it's more correct to say they had an intention. Say
Well, like I
APC
said,
was the only party
allegedly,
that.
that's what they claim. They claim to have direct primaries, and they claim that over 200,000 people voted. That's what they claim to do.
Yeah.
Whether or not that happens, what we don't know. But what I'm talking about direct primaries is because most of the time when we use direct primaries, it leads to this court case, that court case, litigations here and there. Because that's when you start seeing parties with this faction against this faction, talking about this particular ward chairman is from this faction and this ward chairman, and it leads to a lot of clashes most of the time. I think that's why most times parties try to shy away from direct primaries because it's expensive to run, and it's and most of the time it doesn't even work. Most of the time, I didn't say all the time, but most of the time it doesn't work. But Nigeria never lacks good idea. Is to implement them that is the problem. Let's see how far they can implement this mandates to political parties to use direct primaries. But before let me know for the whole space. I can see that Mr. Oti, Felix Oti, your hand is up.
Yes, thank you for allowing me to speak. I wanted to make a couple of comments. actually. I watched the Anambra election on television on Saturday. And then on Monday, I was watching this program, and there was something one of the journalists pointed out, and it has been in my mind. He asked a question, one of those journalists on a journalist hangout. He asked a question that should really trouble all of us. When you consider the fact that less than 250,000 out of 2.4 million registered voters in a 4 million population state came out to vote, and there were 18 political parties. His concern was that probably 90% of the roughly 250,000 people that voted were either party agents, party members, party affiliates, and not necessarily Anambra people. Therefore, the other 10% are probably just Anambra people, but the 90% have some kind of relationship with the parties, either at local level, state level, contract benefactors, people who, like Soludo said yesterday, a lot of people contributed money for his election. So it is something, if this is correct, if the assumption is correct, Anambra State has a lot of work to do. I know people went back to previous elections and checked the percentages of voting in previous elections, and it seems to keep going down, even in Ihiala, regardless of the violence. All in all, the state needs to really look into this. Some of the reasons why he gave, one, he said that Anambra people don't get anything from the governments. They provide most of everything they need by themselves, so they really do not have a use for government in Anambra State, because the state is the richest state in the southeast, and almost more than half of the population provide their own water, their light, except for roads wherever it exists. That's what the government provides, but everything else that the people really need, that they provide it for themselves, and that is one of the reasons for the voter apathy. If that is the case, you begin to ask yourself, is democracy and electoral governance really functional in Anambra State? If you have 250,000 people come out to vote for 18 political parties in a governorship election, most of the votes that I saw, let's be realistic, those people getting 53% and 48%, even Soludo's 112%, 112,000, those are the kind of votes that you get in senatorial elections. The APC and the PDP, their votes are some of the things you actually get in a state assembly elections, but you're seeing it in a statewide election. That is not good. The people need to go back and ask themselves, why is this happening? Why are people not interested in coming out to vote? Yeah, excuse me, I called Ihiala because frankly, I have a home in Ihiala. I called Ihiala yesterday and asked my brother, what is going on? You know, why is it that people are not coming out? And he said, look, people are not interested. It's not because of what do you call them, IPOB and their threats. Even if there was no IPOB threat, that people just don't get anything from the government, so there is no reason to come out and waste their time. So it's something that people need to look into. Those who govern Anambra State, both Soludo and all the other political parties. I'm going to stop here in case somebody has a comment to add to this. And
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Oti. Just to comment briefly on that, I totally understand where you're coming from. Like I said, I've lived in Oka now for a while. So yes, I understand when you say people don't get anything from the government. It's true. In the place I stay, we provide our water. Our light is NEPA, thankfully, and most of the time, like right now, there is no light. So you have to use your generator or your solar system or whatever it is that you can use. Truly the fact is people have lost confidence in government. The government is so far from the people, it's so detached from the people that right now, if you ask a student, and I'm talking to you right now, if you go to Nnamdi Azikiwe University now and ask a student there, who is your governor, most of the time they'll tell you Peter Obi, and I'm not lying. This is a fact. They don't even know that Willie Obiano has been in government house for 8 years. They don't care. The apathy is so deep, and truly it's not because of the insecurity. They just really don't care. I was at a polling unit on Saturday, and I think there was about I think 90 something registered voters at that polling unit, and only one person came out to vote. And that one person voted because like one person voted, and according to the party agent, the person voted because of the money, no other reason. And these are student areas where students are in abundance. But they just don't care about what is happening in the government house because the government is so far from the people. But I think it's now up to the government of the day and the governor-elect to do something to make people involved in the policy making and in governance of their state. Because like you rightly said, the average Anambra person does everything for himself. And like I said, the roads are not even good. So they're asking, even if I vote this person, the person will just go and build roads in their villages. Why am I even bothering myself? And why will I waste transport to go to polling units and all that? So yeah, your point is very valid. So, but let us go to the next person. Maziokoye, your hand is still up.
Yes. With regards to this issue of voter apathy, politics by nature, even here in the West, where everyone is, sort of imbued and, into politics, you know, they don't always achieve the numbers, they aim for when it comes to, elections and stuff. Nonetheless, it seems like, voter that sort of apathy is more pronounced in Anambra State. And it's like a trend, it's not like a surprise that, okay, it happened, last 4 years, maybe it's not going to happen the next 4 years. You know that it's going to happen. And the problem is that the politicians know about this. They're quite aware of it. And they don't do anything about it. They don't talk about it. They don't, care about it. The only thing they care about is that, the election year or election season, they come out with their drums and with their bag of cash to buy votes and get people to, get people riled up and give them cans of malt and bags of rice and onions and stuff. So they know this, and I think to an extent it benefits them. It benefits the political class, because once people comes out to vote en masse, then it becomes very unlikely that a less qualified candidate will be elected in office, like the one we have in Imo State. That I don't know how that one got there. Hope Uzodinma. It's just one of those miscarriage of system, of anything that you can think of that is right, that, people has the power to change things, but they don't use that power, which is their vote, to change their life, to change what, how they want to be governed. I think IPOB has quite a lot to do with it, especially this season, this election season, because there's a lot of mixed messages. The sit at home on Mondays has been ongoing now for some time. And there were a lot of bloodshed, prior to this election. So people are quite afraid to come out, not knowing if they're going to be shot or, get hurt. So the fear is quite legitimate. So, but besides the violence we see, prior to the election, there is that persistent, voter apathy that Anambra people don't come out to vote. And it's our politicians, our leadership, that's supposed to address this, not just in an election year or election season. It's something that politics is something that, goes on all year round, or, 24/7. You get close to the people. Look at in the States, for example, you see the president of the United States every day on the television explaining this, explaining that, explaining this, explaining this, always explaining. But our politicians don't do that. They just come to dictate most of the time. They just come to dictate, give orders. They don't come to explain things to our people. They just come to dictate, and then and disappear. Nobody knows where they're going or what they're doing until election season arrives again. So it's something that if our elected officials wanted politics to be done in the right way, they know what to do about it. And my hope is that as Soludo has been elected, he's a learned man, he's a professor. So I don't think there's any excuse on his part in the next 4 years for us to be witnessing this kind of low turnout of voters like we have witnessed this time around. So we expect him to fold his sleeves and get down and get close to the people. People wants to be approached. People wants to be talked to. You don't just tell people what to do at the election year. You approach them, you speak to them, you develop a relationship. That's how they get interest. Get interested.
All right,
in what
now
you're doing.
let us listen to. Hello, Mr. Anambra, you want to say something?
No, come.
Okay, so I can see another hand up. Chidi, are you here?
Hi, good evening. How are you? There are lots of things I could try to speak to. But thanks for organizing this. Dan, let me just focus on two things. One is this thing about so-called voter apathy, and the other is the stuff about direct primaries. I'll start from the last. Now, people are getting very excited about direct primaries. By the way, of course, we know there was no APC direct or secondary primary in Anambra, but that's another thing. APC knows, INEC knows, because INEC actually did a report on that particular issue, which is the basis on which Judge Moralu is in court. And Moralu got direct clearance from the highest quarters in APC to go to court to challenge that claim of a primary. And Ken Namani, who was inside Oka on the day, knows that there was no primary, and Ken complained that there was none in very graphic expression. But I don't want to go into that. There are things, though, that I think it's important to know. APC had a national caucus meeting yesterday. Ahead of the national caucus meeting, Buhari, by the way, yesterday was not in town, and the national caucus meeting was going to be chaired by his vice. Ahead of the national caucus meeting, the National Assembly caucus of the APC met and decided that they had to pass the bill on direct primaries, because if they didn't, the National Caucus was going to put them under pressure to stand down that bill. And why did they want to pass that bill? Because the bill about direct primaries is not about democracy. It is about handing back to all APC National Assembly members a ticket to return to the National Assembly on the platform of APC in 2023. They claim that indirect primaries, delegate-based primaries, hand too much power to the governors to pick and choose who goes back to the National Assembly, and that as a result, they will only stand down if the party promises them direct tickets, and the governors endorse that. Because the governors were unwilling to endorse that, they decided they were going to tie the hands of the party before they showed up at the caucus meeting, and that's exactly what happened. I can tell you people in the National Assembly whom you can speak to confirm precisely the story. So let's forget this talk about democracy and how fantastic direct primaries are. What is the reality? The calculus of the National Assembly caucus of APC is very simple. And that's why a lot of people are jumping from other parties into APC, because the leadership of the National Assembly is telling them, if you come join us, you will get an assured ticket to return to the National Assembly in 2023. Now, the reality is, the calculus is that the National Assembly, a governor who has to face direct primaries will not have enough money to spend on their election. And therefore, the National Assembly members can target their funds and win in their respective constituencies. That's political theory. Whether it's going to work in practice is a different matter. But this is the context that frames this conversation about direct primaries. Let's not mistake it for any altruism in politics, because there isn't any altruism in Nigerian politics. It's transactional. But let me get to this question of voter apathy in Anambra State and the complaints it is the worst in Nigeria. That's obviously untrue. To begin with, Anambra is an off-cycle election, and it's an off-cycle election in the second half of an electoral cycle. That means you are bound to have your guaranteed low turnout. That's the first thing. You have less than 24 months to the next general election. You're guaranteed low turnout. Even the Edo election, which did not have any set of incidents close to the Anambra election, barely achieved 24% turnout. Okay? The general election turnout that people thought was a lot was barely 30%. So let us start from a baseline that electoral democracy could be in crisis in Nigeria, and then continue from there. Now, Anambra has 2.8 million voters. Most of those were people whom we captured in 2010. All right? That's the baseline data. That baseline data does not account for deaths since 2010. It does not account for internal migration since 2010. It does not account for expatriation and all the people who have jackpot since 2010, nor does it account for any other thing. When you have accounted for all of that, your registered voters in Anambra is comfortably well below 1.7 million, very comfortably. Now, we use the BVAS technology. The BVAS technology is actually AI technology, artificial intelligence. It is based facial recognition technology. And that facial recognition technology is 4G, 5G technology based. All right? That's 4G, 5G software compatible. Now, add all of this up. What does it mean? If you have investigated, you will know that the constituencies, the people who registered in the most recent continuing voter registration, the CVR by INEC, were the people whose accreditation worked out swiftest. People who showed up with 2011, 2010 cards, many of them could not be accredited. You know why? Because in many cases, the technology could no longer recognize their faces. They had changed. So you ask yourself the question, whom did INEC use to train the algorithm that it used? You go to a lot of places, you see, you're talking about the voters who were registered, and people are not factoring in the tens of thousands of people who could not vote because of failure of the technology. And go and look at the numbers across constituencies, from Ezinifite, Nnewi South to Dunokofia. The numbers are very, very significant. So I think it is important that we don't fall into this fad without interrogating where we are. Because this is the first time the BVS technology is being rolled out on a statewide basis. The first time it was used was in the by-election in Delta State 2 months ago. It ran into a crisis and caused violence. Now, the other thing is that in several constituencies, the technology, you have constituencies in which part of the constituency is 4G technology and part of the constituency is 3G or even worse. I mean, the MTN network, just to use that as an example, only has about 60% 4G coverage. If you go to Dunukofia, parts of Dunukofia are 4G, parts of Dunukofia are 3G. So what happened? People were doing motorbike rides to go and feed the software renewal in 4G territory in order to come back and administer it in 3G territory. So can we please do our homework and not get into generalizations that are actually unfounded in the reality or have not interrogated the reality a lot more closely? The narrative, and I'm not talking about the violence here or the deployment of over 80,000 uniformed assets in 4,800 square kilometers of land territory. Okay, and people who are complaining about Ihiala. I was born in Ihiala, and my parents live within a trekking distance of Iseke. Now, as I'm speaking to you, for the past month, there has been warfare in Lilu. An aircraft has crashed, a helicopter has crashed not too far away from Lilu. As they were voting in Ihiala, what do you call it? An armored personnel vehicle was burnt in Ihiala local government area, not too far away from Lilu. In Osumo, communities met and said because of this warfare, they were not going to vote. So it's difficult to sit down in Oka and judge Ihiala local government area or Ezinifite local government area, which is on the other side of Imo State, based on what you experience in Amobia. Let us interrogate this thing a lot more closely. I will stop there. I just want to provide factual context to inform this conversation. Thank you.
Let me quickly, Augusta, please, let me quickly come in here to ask this question, if Prof can help us with this answer. Who advised INEC that it is advisable for me to come to a polling unit to vote in an election, and then I'll stand there allowing you to take whatever device you have to take my pictures in the name of trying to, establish my identity? Well, one thing about Prof said about this election is that I think because a lot of people were carried away in the euphoria of, stopping Anambra and having Soludo, people overlook certain things about this election. This BVAS technology, like Prof asked, how was it tested? What consultations were made? Who brought up this idea that I'll come to vote an election and you start taking my pictures right there and then? And then people have to wait for hours. The thing will not work. Soludo waited for more than 5 hours to cast his vote. Well, how does that pan out? How does that work?
Mr. Chidi,
I don't know.
Adikalu, are you there?
Ma?
Prof,
I
please,
think
Prof, do you have an idea?
the direction.
How did INEC came to this idea of having these beavers of a thing that we only get to hear about on November 6th?
I'm trying to find out. To be fair, this was not the first time. As I said, they used it in Delta, but it was a disaster when it was used in Delta. And I remember having asked questions of the chair and also privately of INEC in Anambra. Are you sure you guys are ready for this? Quite honestly, tens of thousands, quite literally, were disenfranchised by BVAS. That's the truth.
Yes.
And we have not factored any of that into this conversation about so-called voter apathy. And I could even go further and just break down the demographics of Anambra historically. Anambra elections are won in two places. You win in the Obosi neighborhood, Greater Obosi neighborhood, including
in Idemili North.
Idemili North, okay? Yeah. And then in Anambra North, in Anam, Aguleri, Umuleri, because the Emekas controlled the only means of transport out of there. They could guarantee you any numbers you wanted in terms of paperwork, but you had to pay for them to guarantee the transportation of the results. Yes? Now, this is historically how it was done. Now, in this election, Idemili North was a no-go area. Absolutely no-go area. The violence was too much. If any of you has followed, the violence in Idemili North did not start today with IPOB or no IPOB. In Obosi, killings have been going on with cults for over 2 years. The killings have been in multiples of hundreds. And the guns in Obosi are too many. So even Sharon Ikazo ran away for this election. Sharon only returned to Nigeria 2 days ago. I don't know whether any of you noticed. Sharon is from Obosi. Yes? So in that neighborhood, people ran away and a lot of votes were not even counted nor indeed cast in Idemili North. A lot of the polling units in Idemili North were simply cancelled. If you don't have voting in Idemili North, you're not going anywhere. Now, I don't know whether many of you noticed, the governor had abandoned Oka for a long time. He was living in his village because Nnamdi Kanu had threatened him. Now, and I'm not going to go into the arrangements that were made in respect of voting our numbers in Aguleri, Muleri, and Anam. But I think this, and I don't want to take this conversation about so-called voter apathy in Anambra beyond an Igbo audience, frankly. But no, it is nothing, absolutely nothing like your so-called armchair analysts are telling you. The turnout in this election was higher than anybody will tell you it is. And that tells you something. Where all of you are seeing voter apathy, I'm seeing the courage of Anambra people. Let us try and celebrate that too.
I agree. I said that yesterday, Prof, when I was being interviewed by Njenje Media, that the enthusiasm for this election was so much. We should be talking of courage and not voter apathy. But the pity there is that this so-called voter apathy is now being used as a narrative because we have a friend where this issue of PDP presidential candidate was being discussed over the week. And then it came up, if you are saying that we should give you the presidency, how are we going to show that you will get out the votes to enable us to defeat APC in 2023? So that is the narrative now being developed, that people in the Southeast don't come out on election day to vote. But without taking into consideration I don't know whether it's a conspiracy or whether it is deliberate. In every election materials don't get delivered to polling booths on time. Election officials don't come on time. The material, if it's electronic, the device doesn't work in the Southeast. The question is why? Let me look at Anambra West, for instance. Anambra West registered voters 62,637. But the number of accredited voters was only 5,000 242. Where does this work? That out of 62,600 registered voters, you have only 5,000. What is the percentage here? 0.00 what? You look at Oka North, you look at Nnewi, you look all over the place. Nnewi South, registered voters, 89,357. Accredited voters, 9,000. So 10%, equisigo, 82,000 registered voters, accredited voters, 6,000. And these are people who are, Anambra people. I used to live in Nnewi, for instance, businessmen. You don't waste my time. If I come out to vote, I come there. If election is taking place by 9, I come there. If I stay 9, 10, 11, man, what am I doing here? I will leave. Is it deliberate?
Dan, all I can tell you is this, sorry. If we were doing this in a general election and you had BVAS in Bauchi, anywhere in Bauchi, right? Say in even Tafawa Balewa, which is supposedly enlightened, and you had a fraction of the kind of disruptions you had with BVS in Anambra, the place would go up in flames. Or if you had that in Rigasa, in Kaduna, the entire place would be burnt.
There will be riots.
There will be no election. There will be no survival. So I read now. So you see, we also have an obligation to contest this narrative of voter apathy and destroy it, because that is not true. That's partly the only reason why I'm intervening on this particular point, because it is very lazy and it is very untrue. It's unfounded when you examine the evidence. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I can see a lot of hands, but just before I let Mazupe talk, before now we're going to talk about the BVNs. I was already introducing it before the professor came and gave us facts and figures. Another thing I want to just mention here right now is the fact that human resources was lacking during these elections. We could see that a lot of the INEC staff were not trained. In some cases, they could not even operate the beavers. They could not even operate the beavers. In some places, they had to wait for their superior to give them the go-ahead before they updated the software that was used. So it was not just the problem of the beavers failing. It was also a problem of lack of trained personnel. People could not operate the beavers properly in most places. So this is another issue that also we saw during the elections. But let me allow Mazi Okoye to speak. Mazi Okoye.
I think that issue is not the incompetence of the INEC staff is not something that we don't know that is there. Nothing works in the country, nonetheless. INEC, and it doesn't surprise anyone that they turn up late. They come there with faulty equipment, maybe just to frustrate the candidates and their agents, so that they will give them some bribe, so that they will start fixing the equipment. Nigeria is a place where certain things just happens for people to make money. Everything is about how to make money. So it's not surprising to me, because the INEC official is always also on the lookout to see if he can get some money from politicians. So that's what I can say about that. With regards to what Prof was saying, I think Prof is absolutely right with regards to the voter apathy thing, because it happens here too in the West, where everybody does politics. They don't ever achieve the numbers they aim for.
But Maz, in the UK, you see Brexit 70% voters,
yes,
and then even in UK election, you see sometimes 65-70% votes, and yet
yes.
they are crying of voter apathy with 70% turnout. In Nigeria, you have 30% turnout, and people say, "Yep, it was a large turnout."
She was the last to. It's true.
If I may interject here, I'm sorry. If I may interject here, like the prof rightly said, first of all, one of the things we need to do is to update our database and update this method of you must vote at your polling unit. I mean, people migrate every day. Since we're using data from 2010, people have graduated. Like you said, people may have died, people have left Anambra State. These things need to be updated so we know the actual voting strength of people in Anambra State, not just telling us we have 2.5 million registered voters and then only 200 and something is coming out. If we actually know the voting strength, then we can now know the actual percentage of people coming out to vote. This is something we also need to consider. But let us allow Mazi Okoye to finish. Mazi, please.
Yeah, you're right. However, I don't think all is as Prof puts it with regards to there is a low turnout. People are not as interested in politics as they should be, and we shouldn't deny that fact because our people, are massively disenfranchised when it comes to politics. So we must not, say that everything is hunky-dory because it's an off-season election that people could, that the turnout is what it should be. No, I don't think it's what it should be because it could have been a bit better. It could have been a bit better. That is why we must not sort of take it, okay, that is normal, and then move on. We must try to engage voters and try to educate them on the importance of coming out to vote. We must try more because that the number is not, to my mind, going with the trend is not that encouraging. So although we must not speak about it and hammer on it so much, but we must speak about voter education, try to get people out to come out and vote.
Thank you so much, Mazi Okoye. I can see that the prof hand is still up. Professor Odikalu, the hand is still up. Okay, I think he doesn't want to speak. So we are about to round up. If you want to join this conversation, please raise up your digital hand and I'll try to accommodate as much questions and comments as possible. But we have spoken on the primaries, we have spoken on the conduct of the election and the use of the beavers. We have also spoken on the alleged political voter apathy and the circumstances that may have resulted in that. Next thing we're going to speak about is what next? Are we hoping or are we anticipating that the new governor-elect, Governor Soludo, is able to deliver on his promises laid out in his manifesto? I mean, this is one of the few times that we're seeing a technocrat come into politics and do well. Hopefully, he'll be able to deliver a better Anambra, better than what the professional politicians have been able to do so far. And hopefully we would be able to see an Anambra we can be proud of. But before I conclude, Mazi Okoye.
Like I said, I think Professor Soludo has a unique opportunity to do something special, being voted now to become the governor of Anambra State. Is a very unique opportunity. It's timely. It's for him to seize the opportunity and do something with it. Our people has been crying out for, good leadership. So, who is better qualified than a professor, economics professor, and former governor of Central Bank to lead our people, Anambra people? So, this is timely. This is unique, and I pray that he sees it that way, that he takes the mantle of leadership and direct things as it should be directed and move Anambra State forward. And in fact, the whole of Southeast, because if Anambra State does well, the whole of Southeast will emulate that and do well. And again, I think APGA also has a unique opportunity here to try to extend their wings a little bit into other states in the Southeast, not just Anambra State, where they have consolidated power to some extent. So they have a unique opportunity to they've been in Anambra State now for so long, but yet they're not making inroads in other Southeast states. Why is that? I think they should seize the opportunity and then try to make inroads into other Southeast states.
Okay, thank you so much, Mazi Okoye. Just before I conclude, another issue I'd like us to discuss is the fact that we have seen congratulatory messages from most of the candidates of this election. The PDP candidate Valentine Ozigbo has sent out his message. President Muhammadu Buhari and Uba, Ifeanyi Uba, and the rest of them have all sent out their congratulatory messages. But are we anticipating that these candidates may turn back and actually take the declaration of INEC to court? That's take Soludo to court. Are we anticipating that, or are we thinking that this election is just going to be left alone? What are your thoughts?
Well, I think the congratulation itself is a good thing. And, our people will always like to jump into a bandwagon. So it's fashionable not to come out and congratulate. But I would not be surprised if in the next few weeks, some of the candidates start preparing to go to court, especially if a lawyer convinces them that there is a loophole that could be exploited somewhere.
Okay, but looking at the elections, looking at the process of these elections and how we started the pre-election and the election properly, do you think there's actually a loophole to be exploited?
I think with regards to the election itself, I mean, I don't think there's anything questionable with regards to the conduct of how the election was conducted. It's not the APGA party that conducted the election. It's an independent body that conducted the election. So
I think the loophole will come from the way the candidates emerge in their own party primaries. That's what I'm suspecting.
But all of them are tainted.
Yes, I agree with that.
All of them.
Exactly, all of them are tainted. So it's true. All of them are tainted.
Yeah. So all of them are tainted. So I don't see any.
Well, I actually think that yes, that is something that people would like to exploit, especially Anduba. And I don't know the moral ground he's going to stand on, but we're just going to watch and see what he's going to do. But I really think that he will go to court. I think with the effort he puts in, he will not just take this result lying down at all.
Well, let's not make any mistake about this. And let's not make any mistake. I mean, hundreds of thousands of Anambra citizens were disenfranchised in this election. Many came out to vote, they were unable to vote. I saw a video where people came out in a polling unit and there was no INEC official, no materials in a lot of places.
That is true.
Yes. Talking about that, even the polling unit that has government house here in Oka, there were about 1,000 people registered voters. There were a lot that came, about 700 came according to our report, and the beavers was just one and it was not functioning. And the report that was coming in at that time was around 4:04. At that time, accreditation had not even started by 4:04. So these are issues that they may like to exploit, and they may say that
it's rubbish. It's rubbish. How can I come into a polling unit? I look, there are up to 500 people, and there is only one beavers machine, and it is working in a fluctuating manner. It's not efficient. How will you ask me to wait to vote?
So candidates may come out, because in Valentine's Ozigbo congratulatory message, he was saying that it may have been a strategy by INEC to disenfranchise places where the opposition held majority votes. So it may also be another loophole that people may like to exploit. But we are watching, we are waiting, we are anticipating the next moves from
Exactly. If I'm a candidate, I see that, I will simply go back now. I will go to INEC website because all the results were there. I will start to analyze them one by one. If I discover that the places where people were unable to vote is up to the difference between one party and another, then it becomes an issue. You can go to court on that, and the election can be cancelled on that basis.
I don't think so. That is a far-fetched reason to cancel to cancel the election in its totality, because those votes that got cast already, you cannot cancel those votes
No, no, no. I don't mean cancel. The court can order a rerun in those areas. It has been done in this country. The court can order a rerun in those areas where the election did not hold.
They can't do that, but
They can.
since it's not APGA, unless the candidate that is taking people to court will take INEC to court, not the APGA.
Yeah. You can take
Definitely,
INEC to court.
they'll question the conduct of the election. Definitely.
Yes.
That's what we're saying here.
They might.
Anyway, let's listen
do
to Mr. Oti. Mr. Oti.
Yeah, sorry, I had to jump out because I had a brief meeting, but it's over. I was hoping that Professor Chidi Odinkalo will still be there because there was something that Dan alluded to when it comes to this voter apathy. After the Anambra elections yesterday, late last night, we had a meeting. A candidate running for president, PDP candidate, running for president, he declared on the 8th. We had a meeting with his inner caucus, and the Anambra issue, the voter apathy, was the main topic over 45 minutes. And the question that Dan raised was that, how will other regions give us the presidency when they're looking at these numbers? I understand all the analysis that Professor Odinkalo, I listen to him a lot. He's very, very well versed in what he does. I understand all of that. But the biggest question is that reference. How will the North and the Southwest give the Southeast the presidency when we keep recording these 10%ers every election? People might say, okay, when it comes to national election, that things will change. Even if you give the presidency to the Southeast, and the Southeast gives you an average of 40–45% from the Southeast, and somebody is competing against Tinubu or whoever is coming from the North, you see that it will be very difficult for the Southeast vote alone without an alliance with any of these other regions to pull through. Yesterday, I was informed that Wike was running or is planning to run. So it's a serious issue that we need to address if we actually want to produce a presidential candidate in 2023. Now, on the BVS, there was something that they used in Kaduna to conduct the local government elections, where I believe El Rufai lost his own polling unit. I've looked at the pictures of the product compared to the BVS. It seems to be different. There seems to be a difference. So if the BVS is not working, INEC could be advised to go and buy whatever it is that Kaduna used, because it seems to have worked efficiently for them. So these are the two things that I was going to ask Professor Odinkalo to consider, because I listened to his passionate explanations, but when it comes to the reality of the Southeast coming into the center and being part of the center, we cannot be accepting this kind of voter turnout. Yes, it may be an off election. Everybody has an off election, but also if you have an off election and in 2 years' time, you're looking at a bigger picture where you have to depend on others to pull you through, you have to show that you already covered your own base before somebody else will come and help you. And it is not happening. in the Southeast. I don't care about other regions, but in the Southeast, Anambra State election was what we have until 2023. And we really did not come up as serious people. That's what I wanted to say.
Thank you so much, sir. I think we can conclude this discussion, but before I do that, let me just listen to any last words from anybody. Mr. Anambra, do you have anything to say before I conclude?
Yes, I wanted to say something, Augusta. I think Felix is right, because I know Prof was, trying to, put a brave face on the numbers and, try to be a bit optimistic. But we know that the numbers, the turnout was quite miserable. Regardless of what happened, we know there's a lot of factors that contributed to that kind of low turnout. It's not only one factor. There's violence, there's INEC disenfranchisement, there's, other things, people, not being able to get to polling booths and all that. So the numbers is not something to write home about. However, this election, as I see it, is irreversible, regardless of what other candidates like Andy may want to do in terms of going to court. Anambra State is not Imo State. I don't think anybody can, reverse this election unless the Nigerian government is looking for a different kind of headache. That's all I can say about that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mazi Okoye. Let us hear from Anambra.
Yeah, I think on this matter of Igbo presidency, well, I think everybody must have known my opinion by now. It's a good thing for the presidency to come to the South, but ndị bias no onye wepụtara aka ka a na-eke ya oke. So the Igbos have to struggle and fight for the presidency like everyone else. On the matter of Anambra election, well, the Southeast historically have low election turnout for obvious reasons. So it needs it's a very good research topic. Why we all know the reasons, voter apathy, disconnect between the politicians and electorate. People just go about their businesses. And then this, because the election is not also very well conducted, it's always one problem or the other. So our people doesn't have that patience to come to a polling booth and wait for a day. No one have that time. So until INEC improves, until politicians do their work, and until violence recedes, we will continue to have low election turnout, not only in Anambra State, but in the Southeast in general.
Thank you so much. Remember that we were supposed to actually have a conversation on the inside story of what happened, what led to the protest at the Ministry of Interior, Trade and of Industry, Trade and Investment against Mrs. Evelyn Ngige. But unfortunately, our guest could not show up on time, so we had to change the conversation to Anambra 2021, the take home from the just concluded election. Special thanks to everybody that participated in this conversation: Mazi Okoye, Mr. Anambra, Mr. Oti, Professor Odikalu, and Oge Debunam, and the rest of the people that I cannot mention right now. And for me, Augusta